Welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. I am Heidi Marttinen, the editor of the upcoming IMC Yearbook 2026, and it's a real pleasure to welcome you to today's discussion, Rethinking Residency, the Rise of the Multi-Home Individual. And today we're exploring a key shift in global mobility, the way people, especially high net worth individuals, are no longer tied to a single place of residence, but are instead choosing to live and work and belong to multiple locations. People aren't just securing a plan B anymore, they're curating a portfolio of homes and identities. So this evolution raises an important question, or a few important questions. What does home really mean? How are tax systems, compliance frameworks, and policies adapting to this reality? And how can investment migration professionals, advisors, and governments ensure that this growing flexibility remains sustainable and beneficial for all stakeholders? So today we'll unpack these themes with insights from our expert panel and discuss what it means for the next decade of investment migration. We'll start with some short opening perspectives, and then we'll move into a more deep dive discussion. And of course, we'll open the floor to your questions toward the end. So please do share them in the Q&A chat as we go along. Also in the chat, you will find a link to the IMC website if you would like to learn more about the work we do. So let's get started. I would like the panelists to introduce themselves. So ladies first, let's have Krista Victorio introduce herself.
Thank you, Heidi. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. So I'm Krista. I'm one of the managing partners at Orience. We specialize in residency by investment and citizenship by investment programs. We are based in Southern Europe, but we work with programs all around the world. I myself am one of these multi-home individuals, having done one of these programs myself. So I currently also live in a place where I wasn't actually born, nor, let's say, ethnically affiliated. So I'm very happy to share some thoughts with you today.
Wonderful. And Rui?
Hello, good evening, and good evening, good night, good morning, or good afternoon. Heidi, thanks for the invitation, and also IMC. Thanks for the opportunity of speaking here. My name is Rui Passos. I'm a Portuguese lawyer and managing partner of our legal and family office. We are one of the leading firms in Portugal doing immigration and relocation, and we also help high net worth and ultra high net worth individuals to make their step into a new life and a bit of more freedom in Portugal, as well as help them with their, let's say, new life in other places. Not like Krista, I'm a Portuguese. I was born here in Southern Europe, so I don't have the same experience, which is valuable from Krista and their point of view. But then again, I hope that we can share some interesting points of view today.
And Mark?
Hello, morning from Grenada. I am involved here with a company called Aura Caribbean, with the Caribbean arm of Aura Developers, who are, well, currently based out of Cairo, Egypt, but in the process of moving to Dubai. We develop hotels and real estate for sale, and we also operate it as well, so we're quite a vertically integrated development operation company. We've been involved in the CBI, well, I've personally been involved in the CBI business in Grenada since it was started in 2013 with various different companies, and helped a lot of people with their citizenships here. And we continue to do that now. I'll leave it at that for now, and we can add more later. Thank you.
Wonderful. Excellent. So let's begin with some opening perspectives on what's driving this trend of the multi-home individual. How about Krista? You could start off.
I think it's a lot of things. One of the anecdotes I like to share is I've been doing this for quite some time now, and at least a couple of years ago, or even 10 years ago, the vast majority of many of our clients were coming from, let's say, the places you would expect. So we had a lot of clients coming from, the traditional East, looking to find plan Bs or options in the traditional West. Over the past couple of years, it's not that that's completely shifted, but the vast majority of our new clients in an increasing rate are coming from the United States and even Northern Europe. So we're starting to see that everyone has opened up their minds to the idea of, oh, I don't have to stay exactly where I am, or maybe where I am is fine. But, with all of the current events, I think there is a little bit of the sense of, maybe this is great for now, but I want to start putting eggs in different baskets just in case. It feels that the world is continuously in flux. And for those that I think have opened up their minds to these types of programs, they realize that, you can't just get up and leave and go somewhere. There's an actual formal process to do that. And that's what we're here for.
Excellent. And Rui, what are your opening perspectives on this trend?
Well, I completely agree with what Krista said. But I think that in Portugal, at least what we can what we can say here at the office is that COVID was one of the major changes, because when COVID struck, a lot of people were stuck at home and so on and so on. And people with that already had thought about having like a second passport or another residency had a different type of freedom, so they can the freedom of movement was not so cut as the ones that only had one passport. So I think that this pandemic issue gave rise to a new idea for people that have a certain degree of financial independence to look for a plan B, sometimes a plan C, not only for them, but also for their families. Because having a good financial position, but if you are not able to move, then that would be a major struggle for them, because you cannot use your money, you are always stuck in the same place, so that doesn't make any sense. So after COVID, we sensed a lot the movement of the multi-home individuals, so people that wanted to have not only a house, but also some residence permits or even other type of documentation like the passports. And I think that a lot of people moved from other countries, not as US was not our main, let's say, provider of investors. Let's say China was one of the biggest ones, but then this year, when Trump won the elections, a major turnaround happened again, and the Americans are now moving and being the number one trend in Portugal for this look either for the residence permit or the nationality or even buying homes, because it's to have, as Krista said, yeah, I like being here in the United States. My passport allows me to go to a number of places without the need of a visa. But then again, I would be more safer if at any point in time I was a bit fed up with the country and I can move to another place. And so I will have my plan B that has to be started with some, let's say, in this type of clients, you have huge patrimonies. So you have to plan. You cannot think today to go tomorrow. You have to think in advance. So I think that I completely agree with Chris. I don't know if Mark thinks the same.
Well, let's hear from Mark.
Yes, similarly, yes, we have seen more of a trend in that direction lately. Initially, when we started this program in Grenada, it was a lot of people from the Far East looking for, a second passport. We are seeing now more inquiries, more business from North America, with people who are looking for actually more of a plan C. I think a lot of people are interested in having the residency permits in Europe or somewhere where they see themselves living, but that doesn't offer them citizenship, whereas the Caribbean, they can get citizenship here. So I think a lot of people are now looking at combining the two things, like a residency in Europe or somewhere similar, and a citizenship where passports are available still. So we're seeing more inquiries from that. And just anecdotally, interestingly, I had an inquiry from Canada yesterday from somebody who's concerned about it becoming the 51st state, and so they're looking for their plan B.
Well, considering how things are going, it's not that surprising, but very interesting to actually get a call about that.
Well,
so you kind of...
Yeah. Sorry, it's an in-person visit. We sat together and discussed it for a while. It was quite interesting.
For sure. So we kind of you all touched upon this a bit. So, because I was going to ask kind of what's motivating the high net worth individuals to diversify their residencies, whether it's lifestyle, security, or strategy. But from your comments, it kind of sounds like it's a little bit more about the security and strategy rather than the lifestyle aspect.
Yeah, Heidi, I completely agree on what you said. It's our experience, what it says is that first it's a strategy move now after the geopolitical situation changed, with the surge of this new politics around the world. Well, we are experiencing more for strategy. And the second, it's for lifestyle and somewhat taxation, which in the United States it's not so easy, as they have a huge arm that can grab anything, any place. So as you have moved toward the American market now, so it's not much of the taxation, because at some point the United States will always say that they will have a word to say on the money that you receive if you are an American citizen. But then again, I think that the major problem for the Americans right now is that they cannot predict what it's going to be the future. They have a problem with the currency, because the currency is devaluating. Some of them, as their portfolios and other type of high net worth individuals, they have their 401ks, which are the pension plans. Some of them are depreciating already 15 to 20%. So it's not only the political issue, which is violent for some, because they don't know what is going to happen in the future. And for what they say, the problem now, it's not the regime that it's now in force, but what can happen afterwards, after this one. So let's say JD Vance or other politician that can arrive. And so wanted to secure something that can give them some peace of mind for them and for the families, so that in the future, if they need to have, because the system is unbearable in the country, they can move. And when you think to move and you think in advance, you have to think in a house, and then you have to prepare to have the house. Of course, you have to think in taxes. But then again, of course, you have to think in moving some funds. And it's not easy for an American to open bank accounts in Europe. So some of them go to the real estate assets, because that's a non-issue. You can buy, for instance, in Portugal, being a non-resident, there is no limitations for you to buy the property here. But for you to understand, the move is so evident that some of the governments in Europe will raise the taxes or even limit the acquisition of properties from non-residents, which has already happened in Spain, for instance.
Okay. Any thoughts, Krista and Mark, on what Roy was talking about?
Yeah, I think, I generally agree with what he said, and that's definitely a trend we're seeing, particularly coming from North Americans. I do still think that it really depends on the client profile. I do think that, generally speaking, we have the clients that want everything. They want a tax-friendly jurisdiction and a place to live and ease of doing business and everything. And honestly, once you find that place, tell me, because I don't know where that is. Generally, we ask them, what is the most important for you? If you had to rank order, which of these is the most important? Is it security? Is there an imminent security threat and you just need to get out? Mm-hmm. Or is it, are you planning and strategizing for a potential future that hasn't materialized, but you'd like it to be in a place where you could potentially see yourself living? And then there's the taxes, right? So what we find is that, and again, this is maybe a blanket assumption, but generally speaking, most of the tax-friendly jurisdictions will most likely ask you to stay some time there. And then clients will say, I don't want to do that. Well, that's what you have to do. And those that maybe don't ask you to spend a lot of time there, are not really places that you would see yourself living anyway. So I think it goes back to one of the things you mentioned earlier, that it's not even just about having a plan B, it's also having a plan C and D, where depending on how the situation unfolds moving forward, at least you have doors or windows open in different places and you shift your strategy accordingly. Because right now you can only really make a decision based on the information you have at the time. But that information changes tomorrow, right? So that's the trend, at least we're seeing.
Okay. And Mark, any thoughts on these?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I come more from the developers end of this, and providing the product that the people are looking for. In Aura, we are developing hotels and real estate for sale in the Caribbean, and particularly in Grenada at the moment. So we're offering that sort of plan B, the citizenship here through purchase of real estate here. But we are also developing in other countries, in the UAE in a very big way, in Egypt, in Mykonos, in Greece. So, and what we're doing is providing a sort of consistent lifestyle for people. So they know if they come to Grenada and remember here with us of what we're doing here, that they have other places they can go to as well as their plan C's and D's, where they'll have a consistent level of service and lifestyle and standard safety security that they're looking for. So we're trying to sort of offer that alternative for people.
That's an interesting point, actually, that that the kind of the end product is quite consistent throughout multiple jurisdictions. So they kind of, there's that safety of feeling familiar, even though you're in a different jurisdiction potentially. So that's quite an interesting concept that you're working on. So how, obviously, I mean, first I was going to actually ask, other than the US, I mean, are there other global events in the last few years that you see particularly driving this movement, or is it just the general uncertainty geopolitically? I mean, there's a lot of things happening at the same time, but I know the US is one big uncertainty for a lot of people, but is there some other event that you see as being quite impactful into what's happening right now?
We're seeing a lot of interest coming from Africa, actually, and with all the talk of the global south now and the movement of people. A lot of people, whether it's growing wealth in some of the African countries and they're looking for alternatives. We're having a lot of conversations along those lines, and we've seen a lot of interest here coming out of Africa, Nigeria in particular, but other places.
Yeah, and I think for us, it's increasingly so Western Europeans. So, a lot of these are choice destinations for, other nationals everywhere else in the world. And I think it's something that Hui said earlier, that there is this feeling that Europe is on the cusp of raising taxes even more. And a lot of those that are already here maybe don't like that. So increasingly so, we're seeing clients coming from here saying, I don't necessarily want to relocate right now, but I want to see what my options are and maybe start, getting my feet wet just in case these things happen, which is really not a trend that we've seen before. I mean, of course, in large family offices, I'm sure you can see that already, but we're seeing it in a much bigger way these days.
I agree with Mark, and I agree also with Krista. And this is not just to agree to be. It's because what they say is correct. I may add one thing from our experience here. We are dealing now with 6 different families setting up their family offices. Families not only from the United States. Technically, we have one from the United States, and all the others are from other countries. And we have people that are in UAE, because you know that in the UAE you are not able to be old, because when you are old you have to come back, and so some of them will look for a second opportunity in Europe. It's what resembles more a civilized country, because we have to understand a civilized place, because from what we know, it's what resembles more what they lived in Dubai. It's Europe, because some of them are expats from South America and so on. There is a huge trend of Brazilian guys to Portugal, mainly because of the language. And it's easy to find out solutions that are tax-wise very interesting for them. In Europe, there are also solutions for the families that are very interesting, similar to trusts, but that are not trusts, because the trusts are it's a reality mainly from common law countries. But Turkish guys, it's a new wave that it's going to increase, as well as South Africans. South Africans are looking for what Krista said, which is not for today, not for tomorrow, but whenever I want to have this, let's say, paragliding or parachute, let's call it, where I can land in a softer way if I want to go away, or if the things that don't go well. So the United States, in what regards to politics, the politics has changed a lot, the way that the Americans see the country now. But let's face it, in any place where you have either a fragile economy, or where you have an autocratic regime, or where you have a war, then you will have people that want to move. And those are the guys with money. That's the market that we work with. for instance, Ukrainians. There is a lot of Ukrainians now in Europe that they were on the not called asylum, but some protected regime systems, and that they want, okay, I want real to reside in Portugal, and I want to change this into a residence permit, and I want to set my life here. And then you have all the play that you need, because some of them are in Dubai, and the guys that are in Dubai also have to have one leg in Europe, and so you are already playing with three different residence permits, the one from the country of origin, which is a passport, the second one in the UAE, and the third one in Europe. And so you have three tax systems that are different, and that's when it starts for Krista and maybe for me, the challenge of helping these clients to navigate this endeavor and this intricacy of different legislations so that they can achieve what they want, because money buys a lot of things but doesn't buy everything. So you have to prepare, you have to be smart, and this is not only for Americans, this is for people from everywhere, including Saudis and other people. Everyone that can be afraid of something that can happen in their country, they will want to have a second or a third place where they feel a bit more safe. And now with Europe and what we have seen, the rising of the problem with economical migrants in Europe, in France, in the UK, also Portugal and Spain, in the south, the south of Europe. So for some of those ultra wealthy, even these countries that were seen as very good to have the plan B can work as a plan B, but they will have to have a plan C, like Caribbean, where Mark works, or for ultra sophisticated people, Switzerland or even Austria.
Very interesting. Krista, Mark, any thoughts on that? On Rui's comments? Not at the moment. Oh.
Yeah, I think he was actually adding on to something that I already said earlier. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. Well, you mentioned a little bit about different countries. So in your view, how are governments reacting to this trend? Are they enabling this type of flexibility, or are they restricting it? I mean, I'm sure it varies country to country quite a bit.
Yeah.
And do you think that this kind of multi-home mobility could, end up facing the same kind of public perception challenges as CBI and RBI programs, or how is it being viewed from governments or even in media about this, having a plan A, B, C, and living in multiple jurisdictions like this?
So, sorry, I assume that question was directed at me.
Oh,
so I'll just go ahead and
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'll just go ahead and fire. So I do have let's say, I was laughing because there's definitely a very real example I can give you. So, for a very long time, Orience was very focused on Southern European programs, and particularly the Spanish program, which was very popular and increasingly popular, over the past couple of years, when suddenly the Spanish government decided to halt the program earlier this year, citing, things that we've heard before, rising home prices for locals, etc. And again, despite the data saying foreign nationals buying property in Spain for the purpose of the golden visa doesn't even count 1% in the global transactions happening in Spain. That didn't matter, because for the government, they needed to paint a bad guy, and particularly a bad guy that doesn't vote. Well, this is really funny, because recently a lot of media and articles are coming saying, well, the government now wants to launch a program to attract foreign investment. Are you kidding? You had a fantastic program. And it's not even just about those who wanted to do the golden visa. It was that the message Spain was sending was, we don't want your money. We're completely fine, right? And so suddenly you quash these programs, and that obviously wins you some votes. But now the message you're sending to the world is mixed, saying, we want your money, but not really. Sometimes, but not all the time. So what we find is, and I think this is happening in many places around the world, is that governments, and I understand, I'm not necessarily anti-government, is that they need to speak to the people that get them elected, fine. But at the same time, I do find that I think many of these programs struggle with communicating to the traditional voter, why are these programs good for you? And I think there's a little bit of that disconnect between, politicians that find it convenient to say, oh, that rich person from, XYZ country, that's who we should blame for all the bad things that are happening. But at the same time, recognizing in the back saying, this is risk-free, debt-free money just flowing into your country. And I think there really is that communication disconnect between how many of these programs are marketed, not just to the clients, but how they're explained, I would say, to the populace.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of misconception around that. Mark, how do you see this? I mean, are you seeing in the Caribbean as well, the governments, or are they being more enabling, or are there restrictions, or is there any kind of change in the sentiment or kind of climate around this kind of flexibility?
Sure. It's a slightly different topic, really, but yes, I mean, the Caribbean are working closer together now because I think all the governments that have the CBI programs here, the 5 in the Caribbean, are all very supportive of the programs. They're feeling a lot of pressure from the US and from Europe to either abolish the programs or put in place a lot tighter controls on people. Although I have to say, I think the due diligence that goes on, particularly in Grenada, is very, very thorough and not a concern for us. In terms of the public perception here, there's a small amount of negative the public towards it, but the government are doing a very good job now of educating the public. The CBI unit in Grenada are doing road shows around the island, communities and town halls and things, explaining what goes on. And as you drive around the country now, you'll see signs that there'll be a new bypass road. You'll say this was funded by X million dollars from the CBI program. So they're actually making visible signs of how the program is impacting the local people as well. So it's a good step, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to a little bit of the compliance side. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of compliance, even if you only reside in one jurisdiction, and never mind 3 jurisdictions, for example. So what does this kind of multi-home lifestyle mean in terms of tax planning, regulatory compliance? Where do you belong? How do you even tackle that? Rui, do you want to give us some pointers on this, some thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I can try. Well, let me get back a bit. Back in 2023, as you know, Portugal changed and shifted the golden visa, not being able to invest in real estate and only in funds. This was shifted, and I was fortunate enough to work with the government on this and to the draft of the new law. So I kind of know what was on the basis of this, and this was requested by the European Union because it was a question of compliance. As there are some southern European countries where you can buy a house with a debit or a credit card, and so in order to avoid this money laundering or questions relating to this, European Union start to force the countries to adapt to the new regulations, so that we want to receive investment, but not at any cost. So how can we control this? And the first layer of compliance is the money that you receive should be well explained. And Portugal shifted to the funds. And when you invest in a fund, you will have 2 layers of first checking, which is one is by the bank, because the money has to enter in a bank, and the second one is by a fund. Then you have all the compliance rules on the side of the client. So, okay, this client has a Turkish passport, a Chinese passport, and a Caribbean passport. Which one are we going to use? And the Portuguese authorities were clever, and we put it in the law, one specific line that almost defends from these situations, which is everyone should present his criminal records from the country where they reside for more than 1 year. But then the government is entitled to request any other document that suits or thinks it's necessary to really understand if the client is compliant or not. And so the question is always to understand, because let's face it, you have a Turkish passport for 2 years. You had a problem in China, because in China it's impossible for you to clean the criminal record. So this was the move of some of the clients. I'm not saying Chinese, I don't have anything against Chinese. I have a lot of Chinese clients. The question is, the programs have to adapt themselves to the new realities. And the compliance of the clients, it's going to be stricter in the future. Because if it is easier for you to grab a passport, then the countries that will receive that passport will have the responsibility of checking in what way it was granted, what were the requirements for giving that passport to someone else, and to check if you are clean in the country where you have that passport, and originally, if you are clean also in the country of origin. And there is a question that everyone forgets. All the passports says where you have born. All. So it's easy for the governments to say, okay, you have a Turkish passport, but you were born in Syria. So please, we want also the criminal records from Syria. Or you have one from St. Kitts and Nevis or whatever in Portugal. Okay, the passport in Portugal was acquired nationality, but your country of origin was Brazil. So show us your criminal record in Brazil. And so if the countries want, they will have the means to enforce the legislation in order to have a clean and controlled immigration. Because let's face it, no one wants to have only the people with money. The countries need the investment, that's for sure, because you don't. It's like Krista said, debt without interest. So it's money that enters without being public debt. So no one is paying costs for that. And in Portugal now, when you invest in a fund, that fund should put 60% of that money in directly into the economy. So they are helping the economy, but it's not at all costs. So I think that European guidelines are going to be stricter. I have been speaking with the government now because of one legislation in what regards to immigration that is going to change now in Portugal, and they are going to enforce the rules. We are going to be strict because we cannot receive everyone. The immigration should be controlled, and it should be a quality immigration. In order for you to, as a country, grant the same type of amenities in health, housing, in all the services that our welfare state gives. You have to control immigration because it's impossible. The resources in Europe are limited. If we let everyone enter, we will not have the means to support Europe as we know it today. So this compliance in this level, it's important. The other compliance regarding the taxation, well, I can tell you, it's a headache. It's a real headache because when you talk with the client and you know that, okay, he has a trust here, he has a trust there, he has a structure here, he has a structure there, and then all of a sudden you are talking from an American guy or a Brazilian guy that has one company in Panama, another one, a bank account in Florida, then a structure in the BVI and the trust elsewhere. And they have found that the father left them a bank account in Switzerland. And when this is like this, it's a major headache for the people that it's working. I assume Krista agrees with me on this.
Well, Krista, any comments on this kind of tax residency challenges, like where is home for fiscal purposes? I mean, it must be quite complicated, especially when it's if it's jurisdictions with very different regulatory demands. Any anecdotes, experiences?
Anecdotes and experiences, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that we remind clients, and this is speaking to a very small subset of clients, is unfortunately there's very little we can do to help you fix the accident of where you were born, right? And so in some countries where if you were born there and that is your current nationality, that tax legislation will pretty much follow you everywhere until you enact formal processes to undo that. And we all know kind of what we're talking about. Now, what we do find is sometimes we have clients that, for lack of a better term, try to game the system, right? They say, well, what if I do this? And what if I do that? And we're not necessarily tax professionals, but what we remind them is that if you're doing this because you think you're going to get away with something, that is absolutely the wrong strategy. That's bad for you. That's bad for the program. That's bad for future clients as well, because that's pretty much what gives this industry sometimes a bad name. They say, oh, everybody who does these programs are those that are trying to run away from something back home. So very politely, we tell the client that if that is the only reason why you're trying to do this, you need to rethink your strategy, absolutely. And also compliance is always changing. So sorry, tax is always changing, right? So what you think is optimal now might not be optimal in the future. So if you are pretty much changing everything, moving so many different parts and variables because you think that this is going to last for your lifetime, like I got a story to tell you. So that's the anecdote I have for you.
Yeah, definitely. And Mark, any regulatory friction points you would like to share? Any experiences?
Actually, it's not something I really come across as a developer. It's not an area I ever venture into.
Yeah.
And I have to say, if anyone asks me questions about it, I'll refer them to somebody like Rui and ask them to not It's really something I avoid.
Let me just add one thing.
Yeah.
Well, Krista said one thing that it's very interesting. There are a lot of clients that are seen as okay, these guys came here not to pay taxes. They are always taking advantage of the system because they have money. They can pay to good lawyers or good tax advisors or whatever. And it's not always like that, because as Krista said, the country where you have born dictates a lot about your future. Let's say that you were born in the United States, so it's going to be a never-ending task to because it's almost impossible to not be taxed in the US. Then again, what normally I say to my clients, and I work in tax for more than 25 years. What I say to all the clients is that in 25 years I have never, and when I say never, it's never, I have never used the tax haven. Okay, because I think that everyone should pay a little bit of tax. We can control the level of taxation that you have if we use the system correctly, but you have to know it. Not paying taxes at all, it's just something that will endure for a short period of time. Because no one wants that. Because if you don't pay taxes and you are living in a country, someone is bearing and it's supporting your stay there. Let's assume that you have someone in Portugal that doesn't pay taxes. Someone, me, and other people that live here with the indirect, and it's impossible not to pay taxes, because you go to a coffee, you ask for a coffee, an espresso, the guy says €3. Part of that is taxes. People don't know this. But income taxes, it's also not good not to pay, because at some point it's going to end, and when it's going to end, if something was not well done, which happens very often, not to say always, the interest that you will have to pay is bigger than the tax efficiency that you had in the past. And you can not be jumping always. Otherwise, you are not going to have a life. I'm going to tell you a story of an American. There is an American client that came to our office and said, oh, I have an interesting tax solution because I'm not a tax resident technically in anywhere. And I said to him, you are from the US, so you are an US taxpayer, so they will find you. You can try to hide, but it's not possible. And he wanted to apply for the golden visa. Then when he told them that, okay, the funds in the golden visa, you don't pay taxes on that, because the income that it's distributed, it's zero taxation in Portugal, but it will be taxed in the US. Oh, so I don't want the golden visa. I will try in Brazil. So these are the type of clients that are always trying to fly away from taxation. And one day taxation will happen. So it's better for you to have a good life. To be in a country where you are happy, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. Okay, have a good lifestyle, and okay, I have a decent taxation. Okay, oh, it's only for 10 years, like we have the NHR 2.0. Okay, but it's for 10 years. It's better than for nothing. Better than a Israeli client that we have that live in Israel. He has changed there. He doesn't pay taxes, and if you ask him if he is happy, he says no. I'm always and constantly afraid, and so on and so on. So why are you there? Because I don't pay taxes. Well, man, but you can be in other places. No, but here I don't pay taxes. So there are clients really like this. Okay, for our good life. It's not the majority. and sometimes we can put some sense in their heads. But then again, not paying taxes, it's not a good move. It's not a good move.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Mark, since you are more from the developer side, as you said, maybe from your perspective, you could share a bit of what you're noticing with this rise in the trend of a multi-home individual. What kind of demands has it changed? How you develop projects? Has it what kind of things are coming up into your line of work, basically?
Sure. We are getting more and more inquiries from people who are looking at multiple options, Grenada, but other options I mentioned briefly before. So we are talking to people who are interested in having, as well as somewhere else, and the fact that we're now developing in the UAE, in Greece, in Egypt, the very similar styles of properties is attracting a lot of people who are consistency of lifestyle. Safety, security, is a big thing for people. We so often hear people are looking for a safe place to live, a safe place to be able to retreat to, and that's one of the things that Caribbean at the moment, really offers, in a very safe, very secure way. It's a really good option if that's what you're looking for. So we see a talk to families.
Okay. So when you say safety, is this something that you, in your actual projects, I mean, architecturally even, I mean, the technology, everything, does it come down to the very practical bits of safety?
Oh, sure. I was talking more about personal safety, just from life in general. But yes, very much so. With the properties that we build, we live in zone, we live in an earthquake zone. So yes, we are building to all those codes, and very much aware of that. It's not what I was referring to, but yes, that is a fact of what we do. For sure. You see now every year we're getting these massive hurricanes in this area, and so you have to build for them.
Yeah,
definitely. Safety in all aspects.
All aspects, is very important. A big part of having a good lifestyle. Big part of having a good lifestyle is being safe.
Yeah, for sure. So if any of you would have to predict one major policy shift in the next 5 years in your industry, what do you think it could potentially be?
Well,
Krista?
I think we've already started to see it. So I don't think this is necessarily new news to any of us. Well, I think there's a contrast wherein, increasingly so, the world feels a lot more interconnected. It does feel like there's a little bit more ease of travel in general. And, at least with social media and just the internet in general, you can pretty much feel that the world is quite literally at your fingertips. But I do feel that there is a little bit of the shift where countries are slowly closing borders, or regions are slowly closing borders. So a lot of these visa-free exemptions that we're seeing, I do think are going to start changing in a very real way. I think that they already have, over the next couple of years. Now, is that the right move? I don't know. Will that change? I don't know. But at least for the next 5 to 10 years, I do think that that is going to be the reality we operate in, which is also one of the reasons why many of our clients say, I'm doing this program. Why are you doing that program? Oh, because I can travel to XYZ. If that's the only reason why you're doing that program, you got to rethink your decision, right? So that's one trend that I think we've already started seeing that is only going to increase, I'd say, or get more severe over the next couple of years.
Oh,
that's very interesting. Rui?
Heidi, the Portuguese government has already started on that move, as Krista said, so it's a trend. So I think what we are going to face, at least in Europe, is the strengthening of and the rules to achieve citizenship, as well as for achieve the residence permits, even for work. Okay, not only for investment, but even for work. Plus, I think that Europe itself, it's going to close borders to some of the passports that already have Schengen visa. They are going to start to cutting those opportunities due to the fact that you don't have any connections or ties to the country that you have the passport. So if you don't have that, they will start to enforce the regulations towards non-acceptance of those situations. I think, though, that with the political relationships that we have now with the US, maybe we will have a change also in the visa-free policy that the United States have right now, mainly if they continue with this policy, and if we see the surge of other countries as being as important as the United States, which I think it will not happen in the next 5 years. But then again, if United States starts to lose their momentum, then maybe the imposition of barriers to the United States citizens, it's going to rise. And if they become too many, we will have to raise barriers, or even change the amounts for investment migration, because the amounts that we have are for Americans are too low. New Zealand started a program, 5 million euros now, just for residence permit. So,
wow, okay. No, that's a very interesting point as well. I mean, the geopolitics that are happening now, I mean, it's a major shift on affecting everything from business to these types of programs and otherwise. Is there anything that you would kind of advise, or something that you would give to someone starting, for example, or who's kind of embarked in the investment migration, this industry, or something key that they should really bear in mind how things have shifted now? I mean, we've talked about compliance and the right reasons to enter into these types of programs and to look for these types of solutions, that it's not simple, and it shouldn't be based on one single aspect of something. But is there something that you would advise other advisors to really pay attention to and kind of take away from your experience?
Don't first analyze the programs correctly. You should not sell Portugal, for instance, as a citizenship program, because it is not. It's different. Try to understand that European Union is shifting against the sale of the passports as a commodity. We have seen it in Malta, although I completely disagree on the decision that was taken, because it is a sovereignty issue and not a matter from the European Court of Justice. But that's not for this forum. I think that the players of the market should sell, when we are talking about sell, should give to their clients the opportunity of choice, but an enlightened choice. This means the client should really know what he's buying, because now what we are facing is that some of the advisors are selling programs badly, selling one thing when it is another. And then when the government starts to, like in Portugal, enforce the rules for the nationality, everyone is firing back and saying, oh, this was not what was sold, da, 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 da. But in the beginning, the Portuguese Golden Visa was always a residency program that could lead to the nationality if you filled the requirements of the law. Second, do it not for a tax reason. That it's never that is never the good part of it. See taxes as something that it's necessary for everyone to have the well-being in a country like this. Some countries don't have taxation, and that's the reason why they are in the situation that they are. Okay. Third and most important, this is not just buying something. It should be seen as a shift in their lives, because people think sometimes that, oh, no, I have money, I'm going to buy this, and the rules are going to be mine. No, prepare yourself. If you don't prepare, it's not going to be a soft landing, and it's going to be a headache that you don't want to have. And if it is a plan B, it's better to be something where you don't have headaches. So if you have these three things in your basis, and if you rely on a good advisor and do the search, it's easy to do the search on the advisors. Don't go for the ones that sell you the heaven. There is no heaven here. There are only solutions that are sometimes not 100%, but there are 80% of what you want, because 100% it's impossible. I think Krista agrees with me on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been nodding my head. Pretty much everything that you've said is absolutely, I completely agree with that. And I think just to reiterate, one or two of the points that I've mentioned before, usually when I'm talking to clients, I remind them that there's no such thing as a forever plan, right? I think pretty much our generation and our lifetime, this forever plan has changed multiple times. So we do say that, you're coming to me asking me about all of these things that could happen. Like, yeah, look at that. I don't know. If that happens, we've got bigger problems. So, just kind of managing the client's expectations in terms of what are you actually trying to do here? Are you trying to relocate? Are you trying to do a plan B? You understand that if it's a plan B, your plan B could change and look very different tomorrow. Secondly, it's if you're doing this hoping to get by on a technicality, right? Despite how many times I've explained to you the law, and we get this all the time. We have many clients saying, well, particularly for Spain or even for Portugal or many of these programs, do I have to live there to get citizenship? And I tell them, this is the answer. They don't like that answer. So they ask me again. And I'm like, the answer has not changed. You're not going to get a different answer because you've asked me differently. So then I have to say, look, you are welcome to try, but there's no way I'm going to tell you that you are going to get it by not living here, because that doesn't make sense from the point of view of a government. That's not what this program was meant for. So I think it is responsible ownership as well, in the sense that if you are an investor doing this, you have to understand that in many ways you are still a visitor to this country. And I think, as we said, many a times we'll get clients who are very upset at how slow things are. Oh, this is not that efficient. It's like, I never told you it would be otherwise, right? Why are you here? Because you don't like what it's like back home. So don't be upset that it's not like what it's like back home.
Yeah. Just add up one thing, Krista. All the programs are bureaucratic, and if are developed programs that have run for a long time, they are going to be slow because no one prepared the program to be prepared, let's say, for the success. What happened in Portugal, what happened in Ireland and in other countries, the systems are not prepared. Then media don't help on these type of things, and social media don't help at all, because it's easy to, let's say, the Portuguese Golden Visa has 58,000 applicants between main applicants and family members. There is a group of 400 people in a WhatsApp they are only doing shout outs, and all of the guys that are not pleased with the system are there. So if you open the WhatsApp, you will have a depression at the end of the day. Okay, so what I tell to my clients is the following: you have my phone number, you have our address, you have our emails. We are a team of 13. It's impossible that no one is going to answer you. So instead of going to the WhatsApp or to the Facebook, call us. That's why you are paying to us, and we will try to answer and give the answer. The answer is not what you want to hear. The answer is what it is, because you are already fed up with your country. So you have to understand that, okay, we are going to be better, but we are not perfect because we are humans, and that's the beauty of it.
Exactly. Now, I'm just reminding all participants, there's still a few more minutes if you want to send any questions in for our expert panels. So just pop them in now if anyone has a burning question that they would love an answer to. But as a final thought, do you think that this kind of multi-home living is here to stay and it's only going to keep expanding as a trend? Or do you think that global regulation will eventually rein it in, for many reasons that you've also touched upon here, that certain borders are closing and there's certain compliance and regulatory things that might cause some pushback? So what do you think for the future of this type of multi-home living? Let's go to Mark first.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think the multi-home living is certainly here to stay and grow significantly. Not always tied to citizenship or residency. I mean, there are a lot of people who, are very happy with the passports they have, but who are still looking at the digital nomads and people who are happy to live in different countries, experience different cultures and lifestyles. So I think as an industry, it's going to continue to grow. I think the industry where I sit at the moment is, seeing significant growth. It looks like it's going to continue for a long time. There have the ability to travel, the wish to travel. So yeah, I see a strong, healthy future in the multi-home industry.
And you make a valuable point as well that obviously not all the multi-home living individuals are always necessarily doing it via these programs. I mean, like you said, there's digital nomads and entrepreneurs that travel the world and, may or may not buy property, but they do they can cover many, many countries over their career, for example. What about you, Krista? Do you think this trend is here to stay, whether through programs or not? Or do you think that global regulation will try to rein it in at some point?
Oh, I do think it's here to stay. I mean, I think from a demand perspective and a desire perspective, that will not go away, right? And I think that's going to only increase at a rapid rate. This idea of wanting to have multi-home options or a multi-home lifestyle, that is not going to change. And I do think that the industry could be cyclical. So we're starting to see this trend of many governments and many countries trying to close their borders or, let's say, restrict themselves. But the thing is, there's so many countries in the world. So one other country somewhere else is going to be very happy to take that demand. And it only takes them so much to eventually get attractive enough. And then suddenly someone's jealous again and say, oh, maybe that was the wrong decision. Let's open up again. So this will just keep happening, right? So the demand will not disappear. That demand will only increase. And it's really up to the programs in the countries to be an attractive place to attract that demand.
Yeah, for sure. Rui, we have a few minutes. What would be your final thought?
I completely agree with Mark and Krista, and I can give practical examples. Panama opened the new golden visa or whatever program they have on immigration through investment. New Zealand also. And I'm completely unbiased because I don't work with these programs, at least yet. So it's not publicity, neither free publicity. The Maldives also are going to have their own. Nauru opened a couple of months ago. And if I was not so sure that this multi-home individual trend was to continue and maintain, I would not have started here our dedicated desk to just real estate investments from foreigners. So I think it's going to continue, as Mark said. If you look in the past, the difference is that now this is spoken and in the past was not. I think that if you look closer, you will find in the past some of your friends or someone that you knew that had like a Swiss passport, double nationality in some country. So the way to do it was a different one. But the trend, it's the same. And it's here to stay.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Well, I hope everyone has found today's session interesting. I sure did. It was lovely to get your perspectives, 3 very different angles and locations. So it's always great to get kind of a broad insight on a single topic. So a big thank you to our expert panel. You've been excellent today, and thank you to all our participants for listening in. And the link is still there if you want to know more about IMC. But other than that, hopefully see you in another webinar. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, Rui. Thank you, Mark, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, Heidi.